distinguished guests, fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure and privilege to be an integral part of this annual convention of the Madras Management Association. The earlier speakers have set in the right kind of tone for me to take it from there. As a practitioner, leading a financial institution, living abroad for over 30 years, I think the topic, leading change, has come at a very defining moment. To understand the dynamics of this concept, perhaps I have to run the next 15 minutes, prorating each section for 5 minutes to understand what's happening on the global governance. That's the substance Gautam has already set in the right kind of fine tone. What's happening in the corporate governance should be the next agenda. And finally, how you should drive the change, lead the change to sustain your credibility. We recognize the world is changing. We recognize we have to change with it. Even after 7 years of financial crisis, our global growth, if you look at it, it's not sustainable. It's less than 2009. Financial economies are converting as real. Real economies are redefining the scope and performance. Communism has changed. Capitalism is altering its form and substance. Mixed economies are redefining the scope. Extraordinary set of deliberations. G7 has become G8, G8 has become G20. What we once considered as a liquidity issue has moved into a funding crisis. Funding crisis moved into a solvency issue. Today, it is a sovereign issue. Politics and economics is not converging, even though it is inclusive in substance. Execution is still wanted. Unless we set universal standard in terms of accounting, valuations, securitizations, global growth is not sustainable. While we're setting the right kind of mission as Millennium Development Goals, it was redefined in September 2015 as Sustainable Development Goal. The reason being, global growth is not sustaining its credibility. In aggregate terms, if you look at developed world and developing world, it's just likely to score between 3 to 3.1%. Advanced economies still underperforming. Developing economies, if you look at emerging markets, India, as everyone is predicting in core econometric terms, it's a balanced scorecard says India is going to be the top performer, between 7 to 7.5%. America is said to be recovering. It's a premature decision to raise the interest rates. We have clearly seen a deceleration has taken place enormously in the financial markets. Stock market is a carnage throughout the last 1.5 months. No single market, right from NASDAQ to Dow Jones to Japanese Nikkei, no single market, including Nifty, is in the green zone. It's not confined to stock market alone. Looking at the commodity prices, when dollar was strengthening, oil futures were the right reflection of unlocking those hedges. Today, if you look at whether it is oil or any other commodity, today it's in downward trend. Possibly, the dumping could be the major manufacturer's plot. Extraordinary set of changes in terms of the currency market. When you realize the global economy needs to be pumped up with liquidity, we realize we need to put additional money on the table. The hard money, trillions of dollars, were pumped chasing the stock market, commodity market, currency market, property market in specific terms. But today, if you look at the reflection, the entire financial market is a gambling ground. It's not an exaggeration. Look at the change in dynamics in real order. Commodities economies today are completely under the water. When dollar was over, oil was over $100, it was purely speculation. It's not the demand and supply factor alone. When dollar is weak, you hedge the risk by buying commodity futures. That was reflecting the oil-based economies where I come from, where 45% of the world oil, 20-25% of the world gas comes from. We have realized we have to eradicate extreme poverty. We have realized we have to bring in gender equality. We have realized we have to bring in universal education. We also realize you have to bring in maternal health care and again child mortality we need to fix. More than anything else, it is not economics, it is economics in convergence of ecology and economics in direct terms to sustain. World at large has to contain environment sustainability as a major driver. Otherwise, global warming and climate change can decimate this planet. That's the level of threat we are seeing. That's precisely the reason why the Sustainable Development Goal was set in September last year. This is a global scene. Within the definition of the global financial space, India is scoring. As a functional democracy, we are scoring well, but it remains to be seen, can we produce gross welfare to the mass? Can we bridge the gap between haves and have-nots? Can we make sure our economic performance is going to be sustainable? We are proud of our heritage, value systems, cultures, civilizations. It transcended borders. Indians have transcended every part of the world. The food is transcended. The culture is transcended. Festivals are transcended. Your literature is transcended. Your cinema is transcended. There's no question about it. Today, India is globalizing in true suspense. Clearly, the brand equity which the new government brought in, extraordinary to be a proud Indian. Econometrics, again, will tell you this century belongs to India. That's what Mr. Gautam was trying to articulate in substance. But what we need to articulate is set of governance which are transparent, set of governance which are ethically, morally governing and consensus in terms of politics and economics. While market liberalization has been the well laid out principles to make sure free market principles, even China was a telling story, only by economics precedes politics. Even though it's a socialistic nation, it was setting a vision convergence in real order to see free market dynamics operates. That's why America was converging with China. Today's economy, Indian economy, is in the right direction. Our market liberalization is working in the right direction. Our investments is going in the right directions. Our foreign direct investments is rightly growing. Our remittances or inward remittances is set to be in the right momentum. But what we need to articulate is policy decisions which are converging in terms of economics and sustainable economics more than anything else. That's the need of the hour. Financial markets today are completely unpredictable. But how do you govern it? How do you sustain the value system to see the corporate boardrooms are committed for transparency and ensuring diversity comes in terms of decision making? How do we make sure principle-centered value systems are not compromised? How do we make sure we have absolute financial disclosure which governs to set to universal standards? Then we are going to see leaders are emerging for sustainable growth model. Then we are going to see we are converging in line with the global prediction. India is going to sustain its credibility as a good nation. That's the need of the hour. But how do you drive the change? You as a leader, you as a performer, how do you drive the change? You have to set in a long-term vision. And no individual can be a good person unless he has got committed long-term vision. Today's world, unfortunately, is short-term driven. There's an Oriental say, if you aim for 1 year, perhaps you can produce flowers. If you aim for 10 years, perhaps you can produce trees. If your vision is eternity, then you build humanity, human dignity. And that's what is important when it comes to corporate management. Recognizing wealth without work, science without humanity, politics without principles, religion without sacrifice, consciousness is vital for pleasure. All these things are synchronized model for you to converge to make sure you as a driver of the leadership, as an engine of the institution, come to terms. Unless you are integrating your heart and mind socially responsible, you cannot produce a good institution. And that's what Sriram is all about. We're proud to be an institution of character and commitment. Institutions without such character, it's not only shareholders. Mr. Gautam I was carefully listening to the dictums. It's shareholders. The typical financial institutions like us, it's not only shareholders. More than the shareholders' money, a good governed institutions can take 8 to 9 times as public deposits, 7 to 8 times as lending. So what is at stake is to recognize you have social responsibility, which is vital. ensuring your consumers are protected. With the change in global scene, whether you run a private enterprise, whether you run a local enterprise, it is global, it is public. Unless you take care of shareholders, customers, regulators, and the society at large, if you don't have corporate social responsibility, you don't govern. You don't earn the trust and honesty of the consumers as well as the shareholders. So driving the change with the brand equity, building a character is important. Reputation, perhaps once or twice you attempt, you may get it. Sustaining as a good character, as an institution, comes out of deep-rooted dive. And deep dive will give you enough instinct for you to make sure all the stakeholders are listened to. With the changing dynamics in technology, changing business trends, in market acquisitions, economic value advantage, we also see the change in terms of technology. Business process outsourcing, knowledge process outsourcing are not ordinary issues today. The world is borderless today. Territorial integrity is meaningless. It's one world. You are all global citizens. Unless you devise a business model which is global, unless you make sure every bit of rationalization comes in, a cost of revenue is distinctly portrayed as a global business model, you are not competitive enough. You are not competitive enough. That's what we need to realize. It's a question of recognition of the fact with changing business, changing technology trends are driving the change for 24/7 and ensuring your service standards are set for universal standards. And then only you can sustain, you can reach the top, but yes, can you sustain your market share? Can you make sure you produce the returns in a sustainable form and substance? Can you? Then you mean something. Digital advantage today is an extraordinary tool. People are not location-centric, they are information-centric. People are not product-centric, they are consumer-centric. Unless you diversify, aggregate, and customize solutions, you are not going to get the value advantage for any business. That's the need of the hour. Recognition is a fact. Social media listening is equally important. Your reputation can be tarnished in no time. Classic story was this week, Deutsche Bank. 5 years before anyone asked me about Deutsche Bank, I sent even my executives to have enterprise risk management sessions through Deutsche. It was totally tarnished. The image was tarnished a week before when they were trying to disclose their off-balance sheet securitizations. The institution lost 40% market capitalization 2 days. Till the top management came to rescue, saying that we will go for a bond issue. Recognition of the fact that they have to submit in transparent terms all the analytics so that it can be globally audited. Then the stock market was recovering. Today, the social media is a tool which you can recognize, whether it's Twitter or Facebook. These are telling stories for you to set your reputation with a long-term commitment, ensuring transparency, and the leadership is there to drive the change. So what you need to do is to have a differentiated strategy, ensuring you prepare people for grooming them for global environment, ensuring you recognize distinctions in your selling propositions and strategize them to see your risks are mitigated, mapped. It could be compliance or audit. That's value at risk history. Today, integrated stakeholders' value is the real risk mapping. If you understand these dynamics in all sense, you become a leader. Leadership is within you to self-govern to start with. Drive and determination will come. Once you aim at sustainability in real order, the value streaming will speak in global terms that you are a performer, articulate enough to see you aim at global concurrence for your products and services, a universal endorsement for your leadership. And that's what I perceive as the change. That's what I believe as a leadership trait. That's what I believe in building, whether you run a small enterprise or a big enterprise. It's a partnership where all the stakeholders, it's like running your own house, creating gross welfare and making sure every integral part of the components is equally coming to terms when it comes to shared vision and shared leadership. Institution, corporate management is not distinct from the family management. Country's management is not different from what you perceive in terms of shared vision and shared leadership. That's what needed the hour. Leaders can drive the change. The change has to be accepted universally by one and all of all the stakeholders. Then you build your house, you build your country, and you build a continent, you build a nation. A good person can produce a good house. A group of good people can produce good corporate. A group of good corporate can create a good nation. A group of good nations can produce United Nations. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your kind attention.